All right, we've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Jessica, how are we doing? Oh, yes, we are. Oh, thank you, Anatoly. We are live.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you did it. You did it. Wow, that's amazing. That is collective action. That is fantastic. I'm gonna claim host now, so I can hand it all over to. I'm gonna claim host. Okay, so just if you can just make sure try not to have any global power outages or anything over there. You're fantastic. Okay, so Anatoly, your session is in on
in an hour.
1 hour, and thank you for joining early. Everybody else, we're gonna let you in.
Just want.
Anatoly, want to test your thing right now? We can do that.
At least one screen, so I will be confident that it will work.
Perfect. Yeah, we have 5 minutes before we have to.
Yeah, but I simply share my screen. We'll see that it will work.
Fantastic.
Okay.
If anything, I can post.
Host disable participant screen sharing. So you need to enable screen sharing.
So Anatoly, okay, fine. Let me make you enable. How do I do that? Hold on. Oh my God, this is gorgeous. This is so beautiful, you guys. I'm so excited. We have 5 minutes. You know what, Anatoly, guess what? We are going to, if anything, if you have a presentation, you can email it to me for backup, but how about, no, not okay. Not okay. How about Anatoly, I will make you the host again.
Okay.
During our session. How about that?
Okay.
Yay, amazing. Okay, so, oh, Jessica, beautiful background. You're so gorgeous. Okay, so amazing. I think we have everyone, right? We're just missing Batman.
What a good turnout. Everyone's a little bit early as well, which I'm into. Wow. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining all over the world.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jessica. Let me just, Anatoly, I'm gonna move you back to the audience. Thanks. Okay, I think we're only missing one person, right, Jess?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll hand it over to you. I'm gonna pop out, but I'll still be hosting and I'll be managing the stuff when I see.
Are we live now?
How do I pop out?
No, it looks like it.
We are live. We're definitely live, guys.
We're definitely live. Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. It's great. There's some new faces as well that I've not seen before, which is amazing. How's everyone doing? Can everyone get a thumbs up if they can hear me? All of our amazing speakers. Yeah. Love it. Okay, cool. So we're starting off with DeFi Tuesdays, and this is the 6th edition, hosted by Christiana. So we're going to jump in and talk about kind of how the industry is looking at the moment. And today's topic at hand is why innovating protocols matter. My cameraman's just zoomed in on my face during the, thank you for that. So I want to start just with a little introduction for everyone that is viewing the live stream at the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around to each and every one of our panelists, and I'm going to ask you just in one sentence, just to introduce to our audience, when you first heard about cryptocurrencies and like where you were in the world and what you were doing. And then for everyone else, and if Christiana is still in the link, what I would like is her to post in the chat the YouTube link. So if anyone, before I get to you guys, maybe you can share it with your Facebook or your social media. But I want to start with you, Joel, first of all, and then we're going to work our way around. When you first heard about emerging technology and in particular cryptocurrencies, where in the world were you? What were you doing? Do you remember what year it was? What month? Can you give our viewers a little bit of an insight into you?
Sure. So 2014, and I got a call from a colleague saying, hey, there's this company, Overstock, that wants to issue a security on the blockchain. Can we help them? And I said, let me get back to you tomorrow. And I went home that night and I Googled, what is blockchain? It was 2014. So I came back the next day and said, well, let's talk to them. And, we spent 2 years working with them to get approval by the SEC and FINRA in the United States. And eventually in the fall of 2016, we did the very first issuance of an equity security on the blockchain. And so that was learning by fire.
Wow. And I'm sure everyone nodding there can agree that Googling what is blockchain in 2014, it wasn't so easy to come up with a quick and simple answer as well. So Daniel, what about you? When did you first hear about the potential of kind of blockchain cryptocurrencies? Where were you?
So I heard about Bitcoin like when it was like 2010. I was in Dallas. I'm from Texas. And I remember my first take on it was very sort of like what you hear about in the news. It was like $30 for Bitcoin or whatever it was. And I was like, that's kind of weird. That's just like, I didn't really understand. I had no concept of blockchain. It was many years later where I really started to understand blockchain. It was probably say 2016 even, where I actually started to take a look at it. But yeah, for the longest time, like so many people, the first thing people learn about blockchain, it's usually they hear about Bitcoin.
And we have Paddy to the chat as well. Welcome, Paddy. I'll just give you a little bit of a brief of what we're doing now. It's just as an introduction. We're going to ask each of our panelists just when they first heard about cryptocurrencies, where in the world were they, and what was their first introduction. So Medha, maybe I can start with asking you now as well. Where were you when you first heard about this new emerging tech?
I heard about it actually later to the party than the rest of the guys, I think. Mid 2017 is when I heard, not as a result of the ICO boom, oddly enough, but I was approached by a friend of mine who was actually building a new layer one. And he wanted me to get involved to help manage and run the team. So that was and I went right into the weeds, right? All the way down to, what does it take to actually build a new platform?
Awesome. You got stuck right in there. You got thrown in the deep end.
I got thrown into the deep end, but I tell you, the minute I learned about it, I was like enthralled immediately. I saw the promise of what this, technology could bring and the good that it could do. So yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Dan, welcome to the group. I'm loving your backdrop as well. It looks awesome. So Nathan, what about you? Where were you when you first heard about crypto, blockchain, all that fun stuff?
I was at home working on a computer. I remember my wife was watching TV, and it was 2011, was the article in Wired. I always read Wired for fun, and there was this Bitcoin article, the ups and downs of Bitcoin. And I was reading that, and then I just didn't leave the computer for a couple of hours and just kind of like, what does decentralization mean? Yeah.
Awesome. And
Fun
Victor,
stuff.
what about fun stuff and swings and roundabouts and ups and downs and the emotional journey that is the industry. Victor, what about you?
Yeah, so for me, it was back in 2012. I used to live in an apartment complex, and my office manager, he told me that he needed some help with some technical questions. And so he was setting up some like Tor infrastructure because he wanted to access, dark web. And so that's where I learned about Bitcoin from him, because he explained to me that in order to access like dark web using Tor, and this is the money you use, is like Bitcoin. So this is my first interaction with Bitcoin as just a tool. But I think it took me like 5 years until I got into like actually building something on the blockchain.
Awesome. You know what? I was going to see how many people we could go through before someone mentioned dark web. And I actually think 5 so far is a record on these panels. But that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So Paddy, what about you? Where were you in the world? Do you remember where you were when you first heard about emerging tech and cryptocurrencies?
Well, I was at home just listening to how the halving was happening in about 6 months. This would have been about 2012. And I remember going to Bitcoin Talk. And then I think I probably stayed on Bitcoin Talk for about 8 years solid, maybe 23 and a half hours a day, absorbing all the discussions that went on there and just falling deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, because it's not just about, the money and the crypto and the code. I'm a programmer, and that stuff's obviously very exciting, but the real elements of cryptocurrency are very libertarian. They're very empowering. There's a lot going on there other than just the code, and so yeah, that's why I fell in love with it.
Amazing. And Dan, what about you then? Oh, Dan, we need you to unmute your mic.
Best backdrop, Dan. Best backdrop.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, I'm a lot like Paddy. I'm an extreme libertarian, kind of new vision person. I'm kind of building everything that I'm working on is building toward a digital economy. And so when cryptocurrencies really came in, it was like, wow, what a great tool. And I was extremely excited when Ethereum came in, because then we had smart contracts. And so, I wasn't really interested so much in it financially, personally at the time. I bought a bunch of Bitcoin, threw them in a drawer and forgot about them. I was more excited, as Patty was, about the potential of them in a network economy. And then, I looked up one day and Bitcoin was $1,000 in the beginning of 2017. I went, I'll be damned. Those things went from $100 to $1,000. So it's amazing. And then the next month they went to 2,000, and then they went all the way to 20. And a lot of us were just blown away that the uptake was so strong. I sold a bunch of them along the way, and helped me fund my new company, Versus Labs. And we built this new system that incorporates cryptocurrencies and smart contracts and blockchains, and it's so fun that some of it was funded by buying those early coins and throwing them in the drawer, and then finally selling them off when they hit $5,000 or $10,000. It was really humorous.
It's been a journey. It's been a fun journey for sure. And now we're in 2020. So this is a really interesting discussion now. We're starting to get some comments that are coming in. So I think what we're going to do today is, for the first 20 minutes, we're going to have an open discussion about why innovation protocols, why they matter, why they're so important, and why they're really required for this industry to grow, especially when we look at this digital economy and formulating things moving forward. For anyone that is watching now with the live stream, you can ask Q&As in the chat, and we'll get to those a little bit later. And then we have 20 minutes of just an informal conversation, each of you panelists getting to know each other as well. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start by just looking at what is a protocol, and then talking about why it's so important that we can reevaluate them and bring in this emerging technology. So maybe first of all, we will start with Medha and the representative from Casper Labs on just how would you describe a protocol first of all, and then where's the open room for technology to come into play? Sure.
So, I mean, we're building a layer 1 protocol, right? And so when we look at it at the very, very base layer, the protocol, what I look at a protocol as a very strict set, a very strict specification on how you communicate with it, right? It's very, very clear what its role is in the architecture and what it does and what services it provides. And the way I look at layer 1 blockchain technology is it's a trust protocol, right? It is a layer of trust that lays over the TCP/IP communications protocol. So if you ask me what a layer 1 protocol is, it really is the base layer of trust, right? And a lot of people refer to it as the consensus piece. But you have consensus, and then you also have, smart contracting, right? That kind of, so two pieces, right? You have a trust layer that is purely just balance of the virtual machine.
Awesome. So thank you for that. That was a really good overview. Now, Daniel, I want to turn to you now and ask, now that we've identified kind of what a protocol is in the emerging tech space, how is it that actual blockchain companies are able to evaluate what areas need to have these reevaluated protocols when it comes into play?
Well, there's a lot of different types of blockchain. So it's really important to understand when people say blockchain, it's the equivalent. Let me give you an analogy. It's kind of like saying like I work with blockchain is like saying I own a method of transportation. I mean, that's a very vague sort of generic description. I could have a helicopter, I could have a train, I could have a bike, a car, an SUV. So it really is so generic as a term. And I think it comes down to what is the use case you're trying to solve for. And a lot of people really don't understand it. So they conceptualize it and they usually boil it down into a very simple concept, and that is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is effectively a use case. It is one use case of what is effectively a decentralized app that sits on top of a blockchain, right? It was the first use case. It's the thing that people can touch, feel, but there's so many different types of solutions. So like with Meta, what Casper's doing as an underlying protocol, that's going to be utilized in healthcare. It'll be utilized in ID verification. It'll be utilized in probably national security. So, it's going to be interoperable with so many different things, because when we're operating, one last thing, I think the transformational part about blockchain is that unlike traditional systems, it has an integrated payment layer. So it has a data layer and a payment layer that are integrated in a way that our current systems are not designed to do, and that allow for a frictionless automation of transfer of value in a way that we've never had before.
Very well summarized. And I think we can all identify, and everyone was nodding in agreement there when you mentioned it, Daniel, is that there actually is a lot of times that you might have interacted with someone and they might have just thrown the buzzword of blockchain in, even though potentially it wasn't necessary for the protocol that they were looking to revolutionize or revamp. And sometimes it's not needed. So maybe someone wants to kind of raise up. Patty is giving me
I just wanted to chip in since we're going. I mean, I'm also working on a layer 1 protocol, base layer protocol, and I would fully agree that it's actually very hard to find someone who truly understands what the benefits of a blockchain are. And when I try to explain this to people, I sort of start by saying, look, you've got to understand that Bitcoin currently uses 1% of the world's power, and it gives us about 10 to 15 transactions per second. Now, the truth is that 10 to 15 transactions per second is not a lot. Yeah, I could do that on a Mac Mini running in the cloud, and it would be just as fast. So what exactly am I paying for? What am I using all this power? What is the point of using a blockchain? Because the truth is that blockchains are incredibly inefficient, slow, unwieldy structures, yeah? And so there's no point using it unless you're going to be getting your money's worth. And as far as I'm concerned, the only true value proposition of a blockchain is anti-censorship. Yeah, we get that through the decentralization. If you're not interested in anti-censorship, this is where the trust layer comes in, because if I have to trust somebody to run the system, then clearly they can, I have to trust them not to impede my use of the system. And this is why Bitcoin is so wonderful, because it means that you can transfer value without having to ask anybody's permission, without anybody being able to get in the way of your transactions with people. And so I would say that we need to be very careful when trying to crowbar blockchains into different industries, because actually, if you're not interested in anti-censorship, a SQL database is about 10 billion times more efficient than trying to do it on a blockchain. Some people think it's auditability, but the truth is you can do a lot of that with current cryptographic techniques and signing and all of that. So when I try to explain a blockchain, I say, look, you're really only going to be using it if you're worried about somebody getting in the way of you transacting with somebody else. And that's why it's been so revolutionary with money, because this is the first time that we've had sort of the email of money where I can send someone some value without having to ask my bank manager, without having to bow to the powers that be, especially at the moment where things are going a bit funny in the world, where the US dollar is being, restricted, where you're not allowed to send from certain countries to other countries. And the truth is that this sort of thing really needs to be apolitical. This sort of thing really can't be impeded if you want it to be globally used and globally recognized. So I think it's about anti-censorship, and from there you can move on. And almost to the point where if you don't have the anti-censorship, if you've given up on them, and the only way we get the anti-censorship is through the decentralization. And so if you give up on the decentralization, then you sort of miss the point. Then you're not going to get what you should be getting out of this blockchain system.
So does anyone here think it's quite difficult then to explain to people that aren't necessarily in this industry what a fully decentralized process would look like when it comes to kind of governance or government processes, even ID verification, having something uncensored? How would you even begin to explain to someone what that would look like?
I mean, one of the things that we do is we don't bother to explain it. We'd rather just build it, and then people use it. When they put the four computers together in 1969, that began the current internet at UCLA and UC Santa Barbara and Stanford Research Institute, University of Utah. When they turned those 4 computers on, that was the beginning of our decentralized internet right there. And it's grown from 4 computers. And by 1993, when we did the World Wide Web, which was a decentralized system as well, on top of TCP/IP, it was a protocol, HTTP. We were up to 3 million computers plugged into the internet. And now we're at 40 billion computers plugged into the internet. And with IoT coming online, we're going to have 4 trillion devices plugged into the internet by 2030 or 2040. So guess what? We don't have to explain it. We just build things on it. People use it, and they're getting, this beautiful decentralized system, which is completely obsoleting central governments, fiat currencies, everything, without us even having to argue about it. We just do it, and over time, evolution happens. Mammals took over from reptiles. How did that happen? An asteroid hit and wiped out the reptiles, and the mammals came out and went into all the niches. This pandemic is like an asteroid hitting our planet right now. It's hitting fiat currencies. They're having to just paper this thing over with huge amounts of debt. Central banks are going crazy. Oil cartels are crashing. I mean, it's really an amazing moment. And here's all this beautiful work being done in blockchain, AI, virtual reality. All these things are coming together, and we're creating a new internet, a new layer to the internet that now has these censorship resistant aspects to it that Patty was mentioning. So I don't even bother. I don't even bother trying to explain it to anybody. We're just making things as fast as we can with the best blockchain people, the best AI people that we can get our hands on. And we're spreading our projects all over the world. We're working with MIT and Yale and climate accounting and tokenomics. And we've got projects in Asia and Europe on drone management and all kinds of things. And it's just spreading, and nobody even, you don't even have to ever mention it. It's the decentralization comes naturally with it all.
Also, and just to welcome Miko into the chat. Miko, thank you for joining as a surprise guest to the party. So we do have quite a big panel now. So if at any point anyone does want to step on in, just raise your hand and I'll shoot it right over to you, because we have got a full house at the moment. And I want to make sure that we get over to everyone and everyone can get their points. So maybe some people, and some of these are amazing panelists, maybe you want to share some insight into what areas of these protocols and processes are you working on that maybe you're particularly passionate about that you want to share with the rest of the panel?
Well, I can go ahead. So one of the things that we're working on is the most recent innovations in blockchain that you're seeing a lot with the layer 1 protocols is the move from proof of work to proof of stake. And a lot of the proof of stake, there's a lot of innovation happening in the proof of stake space. I think you talk to folks that are working on consensus protocols, they definitely see that this is the next logical step, right? To move away from mining, traditional mining, that is in proof of work, to a more bond-based, you put your bond, it maps over very beautifully, right? So it's a logical next step. With the proof of stake protocols, what you'll find is that a lot of the ones that are currently live and in use today are using some form of centralization to get security, right? They're using delegated proof of stake or proof of authority, or they're just straight up saying we're selecting the validator set and we're going to assume that the validator sets have competing priorities or competing goals. Therefore, we can build some kind of trust layer in. So Casper Labs specifically is working on a decentralized, permissionless, secure proof of stake protocol. And the real challenge comes in is when you're building a permissionless proof of stake protocol, you need to have fault checking, which can be expensive. You need to have a protocol that validators can come and go from, right? And decentralization is one thing that is extremely important in blockchain, but also permissionless decentralization is really key, right? One of the beauties of Bitcoin and Ethereum and proof of work is anybody can spin up a node at any point that they so choose and start mining. Right now, the hash rate for Bitcoin has gone way, way up, and that has made accessibility to mining operations for Bitcoin a real challenge, right? And you see that happening in almost all proof of stake networks. As the hash difficulty goes up, accessibility to these protocols becomes harder and harder to participate. And this is where some place of proof of stake can really shine, right? You can provide greater accessibility for folks to join. But the key being is that you don't really want to have delegated proof of stake where there's some kind of a gating factor or centralization where certain people say, well, you get to join the validator set or so-and-so gets to join the validator set. So that's what we're working on that we think is a really big innovation and challenging to solve.
Hey,
Awesome.
sorry,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'd love to kind of follow up.
Go ahead, Miko.
Yeah. I'd love to follow up. So, I have a lot of respect for Vlad Zamfir and for the Casper Labs team. I have a lot of friends over in that team, so really like the project. But what I did want to set into context is that if you really look at the history of sort of the transition that people like to call it from so-called proof of work to proof of stake, probably the most important project to contextualize in this is Ethereum. And to look at Ethereum moving from ETH 1.0, which is really proof of work, towards Ethereum 2.0, which is proof of stake, and how kind of challenging it's been, right? And to me, if you actually look at the existence of proof of work consensus, Bitcoin comes to mind, right? And in a way, Bitcoin is the sort of most stable, most proven kind of consensus that there is, right? So I just want to make sure everyone understands the context of this conversation, because if you look at kind of the projects that have run ahead into different kinds of staking and proof of stake consensus mechanisms, thus far it's largely been fairly experimental. Like, I think some of the largest proof of stake chains that exist today in the wild, have kind of had potentially some issues. And obviously there are staking mechanisms like Tezos that I think seem to be okay and tractioning, but I think, for example, people have seen troubles in chains like EOS with like DDoS and, different challenges to this. So I would say, we are in the early stages of this, and I would say that calling it a transition from proof of work to proof of stake, the jury is still out, right? Like proof of stake has yet to be proven.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I would rather be protected by economics and thermodynamics than to be protected by game theory at this juncture. So I just want to.
It's definitely not proven. It's interesting because we get the question a lot of times as to, well, why aren't you guys just working with Ethereum? Why are you building a brand new blockchain with this consensus protocol? And our answer has been we're very friendly with Ethereum, right? We have relationships with folks in the Ethereum Foundation. Definitely. But there's a lot of value in Ethereum, right? And you just can't risk it with a new innovative consensus protocol, which is why the best way to know if the protocol is going to work is you stand up a blockchain with it, right? And you have investors that are, taking a risk, right, with their founding stake and whatnot to see that this protocol works. Now, our work is founded in mathematics, so what we're starting with the math, right? Without the formal math proofs, you really don't have a lot of confidence that the protocol is going to hold up in the long run. But yeah, I completely understand that. That's why the best way to prove if a protocol works is to build a blockchain around it and put it in the wild.
Absolutely.
And Paddy, it looks like we've got a
Can I just, I'm going to have to chip in here for a sec with this whole proof of stake versus proof of work thing, because I fully agree that there is a place for proof of stake, but proof of stake is by its very nature permission, because unlike proof of work, you need to know who the validators, who the miners are. I mean, I think it's very interesting that the algorithm they're using for Ethereum 2 has to be proof of stake, because you have to know who has the money. You couldn't do the sharding technique they've got with proof of work. And when you remove the proof of work, it's not that the proof of work is just used for the consensus. The fact that Bitcoin works on proof of work is wonderful and fantastic. But what was being said earlier about the thermodynamic energy, what was being said earlier about the fact that there is work backing the chain is very important. Because unfortunately, with a proof of stake chain, it's wonderful to dream of having a system like Bitcoin that doesn't use any energy. But if you're not using any energy, then there's nothing being spent in producing the value on the network. The price of a commodity tends to the, to the price of production. So that if it doesn't cost you anything to make the good, then the good isn't worth anything. So proof of stake chains are going to be very useful in private environments. I know companies, banking companies who use oil transfers, etc. None of them trust each other. Fine, they're using Ethereum quorums so that they can audit themselves and so that they can muck about amongst themselves and that no one can cheat anybody. I totally agree. But in a public environment, I'm afraid to say proof of stake isn't going to cut it, because there's nothing scarce about proof of stake. Yeah, a proof of stake chain is like me saying my identical copy of Apache web server is more valuable than yours. Yeah, I can't copy Bitcoin. I can't make an exact copy of Bitcoin because I can't put the amount of energy that is being put into Bitcoin in my chain. I can objectively recognize the Bitcoin chain. Whereas as soon as Ethereum 2 launches, I guarantee you there's going to be another Ethereum 2 launching. Exactly the same, frankly, without the 70% pre-mine, which means that the coins will be distributed even more fairly. And the only real security that comes from a proof of stake chain is in the distribution of the coins. And objectively, you will not be able to tell the difference between the two chains. They will be as secure as each other. And so why would someone spend $10 fee on a transaction on the original ETH2 chain when they can spend 10 cents on the new ETH2 chain, which is just as secure, just as powerful, and just as capable? So I love all the proof of stake stuff. There's no denying that Ethereum has done some wonderful stuff, and I love seeing all the little clever things they come up with. But there needs to be an understanding that the proof of work is not simply a consensus mechanism. The proof of work is actually what gives the coins themselves value. So for instance, I kind of don't see the point of having a coin on a proof of stake chain. Yeah, you need the proof of stake so that everybody can work out who can do the next block. But the actual coins on the proof of stake chain don't have any value because it doesn't cost anything to make them. So, you know, there's this misunderstanding. You know, everyone thinks proof of stake is going to be this panacea that's just going to fix all the problems that we have. But the truth is that it's not a problem that we're spending energy on Bitcoin. That energy is actually worth something. That energy is actually being used to give value to the coins. So if you're going to be doing a public chain and you're going to be doing a currency that you want people to use and you want people to have value, it has to be proof of work. Whereas if you're going to be doing...
very mixed here. We've got Miko giving a thumbs up and we've got Daniel having a smile. And I want to ask Daniel, Daniel, why is there such a smile?
So anyone who knows me knows I love to throw elbows. So Patty, this is not a direct attack, frontal attack on you. So pardon me for you being my foil. I think anyone who makes the comment sort of more broadly that, you know, it's like Bitcoin is the way or proof of stake is the way or proof of work is the way does not know what they're talking about. They just don't, because it comes down to the proper use case. Bitcoin is amazing. It is a truly transformational solution, but Bitcoin is not well suited for all solutions. There's a comment that you always hear in Bitcoin community saying you're never going to really be able to afford paying for a cup of coffee using Bitcoin. I think you can make the argument the same for Ethereum. Great proof of stake blockchain, and I think we're getting way in the weeds if the audience is beginner level. So sorry for the audience if it's above your head, right? Like if it's too much, we need to kind of step back for a little bit and explain what we're talking about. But it comes down to use case. Stellar is a phenomenal blockchain. It is a proof of stake blockchain. So I can send a value. I can send value across the world in 2 seconds for 1/1000th of a penny. Now, if my use case is to transfer value, then Stellar is a great blockchain for that use case. Ethereum is an excellent solution for many different types of things. It doesn't, if depending on your solution, you may not require speed for, you know, for a particular type of business. Let's say, for example, something in the mortgage industry. Well, if you pay 40 cents for gas for a smart contract type of transaction on Ethereum blockchain, that's great. It's not really a big deal when it comes to a mortgage. I wanted to just speak to, we're talking about real world applicability. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to is, regardless of what blockchain you're using, there's a lot of different types, and you'll see more and more of them. It's effectively a technology that allows for cutting out unnecessary middlemen. I hope Patty and we'll all agree with me on that. It's centralized, so it's peer-to-peer. And what that means is we can now solve many different types of solutions that the blockchain is for complicated supply chains, whether it be supply chains of data, supply chains of payments, and integrating those data and those payments, automating the value transfer, automating, which effectively Gartner says in 2030, you know, 30% of all transactions are going to be happening computer to computer. You're not going to be able to do that through traditional systems right now. You got to remember that we're using a banking system that was 50 years old. I love to talk about how, like, if you think about like the 8-track, if you're in this conversation, if you've never seen an 8-track, then you don't understand how old the systems really are. And so now, right now, we're talking about using a much more modern infrastructure that is a lot more flexible, that can do a lot of different things. And I really think we need to be aware of, we need to stop looking at the world through the lens of proof of work, proof of stake. That is like an argument between nerds. It really comes down to what are you trying to solve for, and what is the proper blockchain that you're going to use for that use case. And I'll step back.
Joel, I would love to hear your insight on
I'm
what
sorry,
you're
I'm just going to have to
thinking.
chip in and say it's not quite an argument for nerds. It is an argument about value. And there's just, if there's nothing backing the currency, then there's nothing backing the currency. I specifically didn't mention Bitcoin as it happens. I happen to think there are different ways of doing proof of work that don't centralize as ridiculously as the Bitcoin mining has. All I'm saying is that if you want your currency on your chain to have value, then you need to have spent something making it. Because if it costs you nothing to make, it's not worth anything.
Why, Patty? The number one most traded, I'll pass it on. Number one most traded cryptocurrency in the world is the U.S. dollar, and the dollar is backed by guns, and that's never going to change. And I
mean, the reality is an item has value if somebody's willing to pay for it, right? I mean, that's basically it. I mean, it's supply-demand economics, right? So, I mean, you could argue that Bitcoin, yes, has value because there's work behind it, but arguably not $9,000 per Bitcoin, right?
Yeah,
we all know. I mean, it's not commensurate. It's not commensurate. Now, I love Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. A big Bitcoin fan. Own Bitcoin. Hold Bitcoin. Love it. It's a great thing, right? Like, however, value is ultimately what somebody to pay for.
I'm going to direct it to Joel now because we've been extremely patient, and I want to hear.
No, I think Daniel was going down the right road, because we sometimes get caught up in the weeds. And what we need to remember is what we're trying to accomplish. We started out this conversation saying that blockchain is okay for some things and it really sucks for a lot of other things. So if we go back to thinking about what are we trying to accomplish, then there may be times where it's proof of work, maybe times where it's proof of stake, but also there may be times where it doesn't make sense to be completely decentralized. There are times where we do want, at least to some extent, somebody involved kind of running the system. So you asked earlier on who's governing it, who's in charge. Well, sometimes we do want at least somebody in charge partially. And so when we start to look, for example, at how a number of countries are starting to say, hey, can we digitize our currency? Can we issue central bank digital currencies? Those are good projects. Those are really cool things that we're starting to see happen. But for those things to happen, we need to really have a serious debate on, can we do that on a fully peer-to-peer basis? Does there need to be some level of centralization? Does there need to be somebody playing some type of role, either directly or indirectly in charge? And then we can start to talk about, as part of that, do we look at a proof of stake or proof of work process for getting to where we want to be? How do we combine payments and identification? How do we create security? How do we roll all of that together? And those questions start to then answer what makes the most sense, what type of protocol, what direction we go in.
That is an interesting point. I think when we look as well at fully decentralization, there is still that debate ongoing, which is are we at a point where we can fully go to the decentralized method? And I think everyone might have a different perspective on that, especially when we look at kind of the price of crypto.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to say that I think that's an excellent point with the centrally issued stable coin, etc. So if a country wants to release their currency as a digital currency, to increase liquidity, to make it faster to transact, and not have to, so that people can interact with each other peer to peer without it always having to go through the bank. Classic, perfect example of why you'd use proof of stake. Yeah, that's not a proof of work chain. Proof of stake would be perfect for that, because there's no point wasting energy on a currency that is centrally issued and given value by the government. Yeah, that's a great way of using it. I mean, frankly, proof of stake is made for side chains off a power chain. Yeah, that's where it's basically going to go, which means you need as much innovation as possible on those chains. But for the value capture, I'm not going to go there again. It's power.
Okay, does anyone have a counter argument to that? Because I think Patty's made some really interesting.
Not so much a counter argument, but I think back to what John was raising, is that we're in a hybrid world. We have one foot in the old world, the military industrial oil complex that's running the world right now. And we're building a new world right now that's basically, when a new technology comes in, it's used to solve old problems first. Then it turns around and goes, this is what I'm really about. So when internal combustion engines came in, they were used on the farm to build tractors. Only later it was like, oh, wait, we can give everybody a car. We can have suburbs, we can have highways, we can travel. These DLTs and the internet itself is really initially, hey, how do we make our existing system work better? But that isn't really what they're about. They're about replacing the existing system. What happened when the printing press came in 1450, that was an agricultural economy at that point with monarchies. What happened in the next 200 years is they're all gone, because the industrial age came in and the factory model was the way to create wealth rather than growing things. And the monarchies were in the way. So they were completely gone. And we replaced them with oligarchies. They call them representational democracies or whatever, but they're basically oligarchies. And so 1% in each country kind of runs each country right now. And that's the way the industrial model works. Now we see an opportunity to go to kind of a more global democratic model where we have a decentralized system that doesn't have these big central authorities, and we're in that transition zone. So, like in our Versus Labs, which is my company, we build things, and so we build kind of a nervous system that says, hey, it's not just about blockchains. The other big radical tool here is artificial intelligence. So we integrate artificial intelligence with blockchains. And then if we're going to run a smart city, maybe we want to see it in 3D. So we integrate it with virtual reality and augmented reality as well, and with Esri maps. And so suddenly now you can have a mixed mode data layer where some things are on blockchains. You might have IDs on Sovereign, you might have contracts running on Ethereum or whatever, and you still got other stuff over here in the cloud and other stuff in your old data centers. So that's the world we're living in. So we're creating migration paths to move from the world that we've been in and grew up in and are living in to the new world that will kind of really be fully instantiated by, say, 2040. 2025 will have a lot more, 2030 will have a lot more, 2035 a lot more, 2040 maybe it's tipped over and the digital economy is the dominant economy by then. It may be.
Wow. And Daniel, it looks like you had a point as well.
I'll just say I love what Dan said. A lot of comments that he said I totally agree with. I love his interest and intellectual interest in history. But I would say caution anyone when they speak about technology, it's somehow being and I don't know that Dan was saying this, but I hear it sometimes, that, blockchain is going to solve all the world's problems and it's now this fully decentralized thing and this decentralized democracy. And I'm not saying that's what Dan was making the argument of. I hear it sometimes. And I'd say, be careful, because while just like anything else, AI or anything else, it can be used for many, many great things. And there's the scary, scary side of it too. And I'll give you one example and I'll defer. I've always said that I thought blockchain can be used for a really authoritarian purpose, because remember, we're now moving to a society where everything can be tracked. And it's weird. It's really weird if you think about it, because people talk about it's almost like, kind of reminds me of these movies where free the weed, man. But at the end of the day, there's this support of this democratic ideal. But what we're really doing is because it's decentralized and it's peer-to-peer, but everything is tracked, everything. So why is China the first major government to choose to use blockchain for its currency? Because it loves to know where every single flow of funds down an entire supply chain from every single person, and you can place artificial intelligence today, not in the future, not in some sort of dystopian, movie in 2049. This is today. Take the blockchain, place artificial intelligence on it, assign social scores to people, and block people's ability to spend money based upon the social score. So we have to be careful about the utilization of that technology as well. There's an edge to it that is not positive.
Let me just let me reply to that. No, absolutely, Daniel, you nailed it. I mean, these things are really. When the Wright brothers invented the airplane in early 1903, I think it was, at Kitty Hawk, they thought, oh my gosh, this is just awesome. This will lead to world peace. And of course, they created bombers later. But what we have, I have a book out, which I hope you all read at some point, because we really address a lot of stuff in the book. It's called The Spatial Web, SPATIAL, The Spatial Web. And we really address self-sovereign identity, zero knowledge proofs, these kinds of things, where you're really not logging in anymore to this digital environment. You have sovereign ID, you have your own data. It's what Tim Berners-Lee is doing right now with his data pods as well. There's a lot of work being done in these areas. So we're right in the center of that thing. And that's a lot what we're doing with MIT and Yale as well, working on some of these theoretical structures on how we guarantee personal privacy in the middle of having almost a gamification of the planet and of the economy. Because gamification without self-sovereign identities and zero knowledge proofs, as you said, is the perfect panopticon.
Can I just check about AI? And I do find it quite interesting that Bitcoin itself and other currencies, of course, I'm mentioning Bitcoin because it's the biggest, baddest boy in town. So let's just go for him. I would say that in a way that is already an AI. It reproduces. It's like the inverse of a virus. People voluntarily install Bitcoin on their computers. There's nobody telling you. It sort of spreads automatically. It's like Bitcoin's the first digital organism that seems to have garnered a life of its own. And that's only possible because it can incentivize you to install it with this value layer that we've never had before. We've always been able to transfer information between each other, but information is infinitely copyable. So unfortunately, information itself cannot in and of itself be valuable. Whereas now with Bitcoin, we've got the ability of actually transferring value uncopyably, unforgeably. And this has given rise to what I would consider the first digital entity that is spreading across the world now. So I would say Bitcoin is already an artificial intelligence. We just don't have, it's not quite speaking, we don't speak to it in English or whatever, but it's definitely in some senses alive. It reproduces, it grows, it incentivizes, it's a very interesting, structure from just the AI point of view.
What a great group of people. What a great group of people.
Just before we go to questions, I do want to go to Victor, because when we look at you're developing a wallet, why have you decided to get into the wallet space? We're talking about value and intrinsic value here. So you must have seen potential here.
I think the way I saw potential is like in terms of user experience. And that's one of the problems I've seen with technology is that like back in 2017, there was not an easy way to even store your tokens on mobile because there was no apps built and it was like pretty empty. And I think that's where, I started getting into crypto to understand like what's actually missing. And what was missing is the user interfaces to integrate technology. So, I mean, you can look at 2012 that, Bitcoin was there, but in order to use it, you would need to install an application. You need to run full node, which requires you to have a powerful computer. So that was really inaccessible back then. I think now with technology, we're able to create simple interfaces to access those layers, protocols. And, I think the great thing about this is, we as developers, we're able to connect to any protocol out there that's available for anyone. So we don't need to ask permission for integrating Bitcoin because we can just, look at the technology stack and we can just integrate it to a product and provide it to our users. And I think this is very powerful just by itself. Because before, if you wanted to build anything for the financial system, you would need to talk to a bank, ask for permission to use their APIs, ask for the SDK, and probably they wouldn't even give you because you don't have a specific permissions or whatsoever. Yeah, I think that's what kind of gives power to people to truly use permissionless system at this point. Yeah, for me, I think it was all about making more accessible as an end user.
And that's a really interesting point. And that goes on to some of our questions as well, because we have some questions that I've been kind of monitoring on the panel. And we're going to get to those now. And we have one by a guy called Matthew Nolan. And he's asked how China's cryptocurrency could be anything different to the digital currency that we do see on WeChat. So Daniel, you raised your hand first, and anyone else feel free to raise your hand to answer second. But Daniel, what's your thoughts on the difference between WeChat's digital kind of payment method and China's cryptocurrency?
Well, it's interesting because anyone, who's been to China knows that Tencent, which owns WeChat, and Alibaba, which has Alipay, they're basically sort of synonymous as payment instruments within China. And so, interestingly enough, the Chinese, the People's Bank of China, the PBOC, and they're instituting this, centralized permissioned China currency. They actually included, because they're so like, these fintechs control the marketplace effectively. WeChat and Alipay are integrated into that PBOC central banking system. So they're actually, for the first time, fintechs are that large where they can do that. I would say to the broader point, I will say, the US dollar, people don't know this. I don't know why. It's public information. The most traded cryptocurrency in the world is the US dollar. I don't know why people don't know that. They don't seem to understand it, but it is true. It's traded way more than Bitcoin. And it's actually an opportunity for the American government as a reserve currency to expand its role. But I will say that they're vacating their or the American government's vacating its ability to, because there's no regulatory certainty. And Frank, I was actually just in a conversation with somebody in DC today about this, that there is no formal policy. President, his only understanding is about Bitcoin. He doesn't like it. And if you ask any congressman or congresswoman of any party, they pretty much have, most people have a limited knowledge of blockchain, let alone cryptocurrencies. And if they think of cryptocurrencies, they think of it strictly from a money laundering perspective. So there's a lot of education. If the American government were to embrace it in the same way that so many like companies are starting to, then I think we would see actually an expansion of America's role with the US dollar. If they don't, then they're opening it up to other participants in the world.
I'm going to have to chip in and say that they're very close to already missing the boat. The reason China have come in with their cryptocurrency is clearly because they're going to sweep up all the liquidity that's out there. They can tell that everybody wants to use it. The first person on the block is going to get everybody using it. I mean, this is obviously where it's going. So if they're first on the block, people are going to start using that. They're going to start transacting in that. And I mean, I'm sort of like, I think the 50-year US dollar era is frankly coming to an end now. You know, and that's fine. I mean, actually, they've had a good run. Everybody normally gets about 50 years. I mean, we were there before the Americans, and then we went down with the, you know, with the British pound. Then the Americans came in with the US dollar. But it's definitely time for something new. I mean, it's clearly the most used petro. You know, you've got to pay the Saudis in dollar to buy their oil. Yeah, you've got to buy all the oil around the world in US dollar. That creates demand for the dollar. Frankly, the US government have had it easy because just by being the bearer of the, you know, world's reserve currency, they've had an unbelievable advantage, maybe undeserved, some might say. You know, that's where a lot of their economic might comes in, which is very weird why they're not jumping more on this. You know, they can definitely tell that this is slipping out of their hands. You know, the ridiculous printing of the Fed at the moment with the latest $6 trillion, you know, money has lost all meaning. Nobody knows what they're printing anymore. Frankly, you know, if they were any other country, the US dollar would be a Zimbabwean dollar by now. Yeah. And frankly, we're all sitting around waiting for that moment to happen, you know. So I've got to say,
there's the big issue of regulation, which is why, Joel, I wanted to ask you, where does regulation come into all of this then?
Well, so let's put this in perspective, because most fiat currency already exists primarily in digital form. Daniel, as you were saying, the amount of currency that exists in paper coin keeps going down every year. So when we're talking about digital currency, we're talking about a different way of trading that currency, going from existing systems to using some type of distributed ledger technology. And by doing that, we can start to incorporate into that digital currency other aspects. We can create smart digital currency, or we can combine it with identity or with tracking, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about fiat currency. And so the regulatory regimes, for better or worse, that we have now as far as how we manage global currencies and how we keep global economic systems going, you know, we can debate whether those work or don't work, but presumably we want some type of regulatory regime to continue to exist with respect to fiat currencies as we do now. And the fact that we move them from the old type of digital to the new type of digital that involves blockchain doesn't change those drivers for at least some type of regulation. And that has to happen so we don't have global systemic challenges and meltdowns. And we can debate whether the regulatory regimes need to change, but I don't think we should be talking about eliminating them altogether. That just doesn't make any sense.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disagree with you there and say that I think that money should be apolitical. You know, currently we're funding zombie, inefficient, rubbish businesses to keep going.
That doesn't mean no regulation. It may be that the regulation we have needs to be fixed, but apolitical in lack of regulation, I don't think are the same thing.
I couldn't agree more with Joel. I couldn't agree more with Joel. And so I'd say, like, anybody who thinks like that we're going to move to, you understand the mindset of the consumer is, I get paid in, Bitcoin is a commodity. It's a digital commodity. And no one wants to get paid, hey, Medha, great job this week. Here's your digital corn.
Kick it in corn, exactly.
Yeah, here's your digital corn. And good luck with that, you know, and buy shit with it. So like, people want a stable value. It is true.
They accept gold. If you said to someone, I'll pay you in gold, they'd say, okay.
I mean, and by the way, for the gold bugs out there, there have been 5 depressions in US history, and guess what? They've all been under the gold standard. So any geniuses who believe in the gold standard don't know anything about economic history. But the point is, at the end of the day, we all operate. I love Bitcoin. I love it. And I think it's important to understand the economics behind it, and I'll go throw it back. What makes Bitcoin so genius is it's built in math, and it still actually is inflating. Okay, it's still inflating, but what it's effectively doing is it's standing still mathematically. And every hour, another 6 Bitcoin gets sent out into the world, and every hour, 6 Bitcoin. The difference is the Federal Reserve, for different reasons and different economic policies, and we'll see if it becomes a big cluster at the end. But the Federal Reserve is basically printing on behalf of a global problem that's existing right now, and it seems ever more frequent. So Bitcoin effectively looks like it's increasing in value, but really it's actually standing still, and it's that the dollar is actually losing value, kind of like a frog that's boiling in water. So I share the people who have the love for Bitcoin and its value. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin should become the global currency for all. I'm not going to pay people in digital form.
One of the things I think Daniel mentioned a long time, quite a while back in the conversation, was really the ultimate loss of control that we will face with this highly trackable currency. Like, to me, sovereign currencies, cryptocurrencies, scare the crap out of me, because I don't believe that the government, it's bad enough that the IRS can garnish wages. I think that's already overreach and control. But now thinking of them just being able to cut the spigot off right there because it's a centrally controlled currency. And I'm reminded of the book Code 2.0. For those of you that haven't read it, the book was actually quite prescient because it was written in the late 80s, early 90s, and it talks about the cypherpunk movement around the internet. And the folks that were knee deep in the creation of the internet believed that the internet was going to liberate us all, and we were going to have all this freedom and all the things that we're able to do. And what he postulates in the book, he says, the powers that control will find a way to not only regain control, but actually exert greater control and have greater information and greater information tracking on every single citizen as a result of this new technology. And I think, this is something that actually kind of keeps me up at night, is that the technology that I'm helping to build, I hope someday won't enslave us all, right? And for me, I think that, permissionless decentralization are super, super important. But man, you're kind of thinking about, like, I'm building this great technology, but in the end, is it going to present more problems for us as a society than benefit us, And people are very easy to give up privacy for convenience, right? Like, you talk about Clear and TSA pre-check. It's like, yep, I'm going to give away my privacy so I can save 15 minutes in line, right? When I got to rush to catch a flight. And I think the same thing is going to happen with cryptocurrencies, right? It's kind of one of the things, like, we got to kind of come to terms with.
I mean, one of the things that we're all forgetting, though, is that there's a force that's operating that's deeper than our intelligence. And it's been operating on the planet for 4 billion years. We went from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms to the Cambrian explosion 500 million years ago. I mean, evolution is the single most powerful thing happening. And there's no resistance to it. You can have short-term wins against it, but ultimately it rules. And we're moving toward a global democracy. I mean, that's just where we've been heading from for 200,000 years. We were living in tribes with tribal chieftains who ruled by power, and the strongest guy usually was the tribal chieftain. Then we went to agriculture, and we went to monarchies, then we went to industrial age, and then we went to oligarchies. And you can see the trend is moving. I mean, we're moving on to a global network that has the ability to encode protections against privacy and for other kinds of things, and we will use them. And I've always said, if you're really going to get in an argument between government programmers and hackers win every time. And they are the evolutionists. They're playing in the edges. And the code we're writing, I mean, I'm just blown away with the coders we have and what they're doing. I mean,
I'm going to have to
Absolutely, I have to. Let me just step in first, because we are going to have to go to the audience questions now in just a second. Sorry, guys. I know we were right in the middle of the conversation there. So first of all, I do have to give a shout out to our partners at WeWork Blockchain Labs. So anyone can get a 2-for-1 virtual membership percentage of a membership on the platform. So if you do want to get some more information to any of our audience members, go in now. But I do want to go to some of our audience questions first of all, because one of the audience questions that we did have was looking at the US dollar as a virtual currency and a global currency. Does it have the full potential? Now, we've talked about kind of economic cycles and global reserve currencies. One of the questions that we did have from the audience is the potential of a cryptocurrency to overthrow the US dollar. Paddy, what's your thoughts on this?
It's already happened. You're just watching it in slow motion. I think it's already happened. I think it's not a question of if it can happen. I think we're just saying, how long is it going to happen until the US dollar is actually dead? So that moment, that, as I call it, the singularity occurred when Bitcoin was launched. And since then, there's been no stopping it. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be Bitcoin. Yeah, the race is still on. The wacky race with all the different cryptocurrencies is still going. We haven't got a winner yet. Yeah, no one's won the prize yet. But the truth is that the days of the US dollar running the earth are over. That's already happened. Yeah, it's not a question of if, it's when. So how much longer can the US dollar stay dominant? Depends. How much longer can the US government keep bullying all the other countries? Yeah, but basically that's already happened. It's not a question of if.
Daniel.
Yeah.
I like my debates with Patty here. We'll have a beer later. So one day, okay, I don't agree for a few reasons. If you look at the global economy, you have the United States as the front runner. You have China, which is next. China is not going to be the fucking cryptocurrency, the reserve currency. It ain't going to happen because China is a authoritarian country that frankly is it's certainly very powerful, but it is not making friends and influencing people in the world. Okay, so no one is going to go to a communist. They're capitalist, but they're not going to go to this like overarching authoritarian government where they don't feel comfortable as for business, for consumers. You have to have a fairly westernized democracy for the most intellectual, the smartest, the most capable people in the world to have some sense of freedom. And they really don't have that in China. One of the things we were talking about earlier around the reserve currency and why China was kind of, building their cryptocurrency, it's actually a defensive maneuver. It's defensive because people are trying to send their money today out of China because they have capital restrictions, and all the Chinese, all billion plus of them, are trying to find ways to launder their money away from the Chinese government so that they can't be taxed at a high rate because there are certain capital restrictions they have. Fact. So if you look at the other countries, it's not going to be the European Union with the euro, which it certainly was. When that was created, the thought process was maybe the euro would be like the dominant kind of counterforce to the dollar. But the European politics make that almost impossible. I mean, if you look at what they're doing with GDPR and AMLD5 and a lot of things, it's really hard to do business in Europe. So Europe is a great westernized, freedom-loving society, generally speaking, all of that, but it's not exactly an easier place to do business with than US. And US is already hard enough to deal with as it is. It's even more complicated because now you have 30 plus countries, all of their bureaucracy. It's not easy. So, and then who's going to be beyond Europe, beyond China, beyond the US? It's not going to be India. So who is going to step in? And you have BRICS, which is, Russia, India, China, Brazil, and they haven't been able to come together and figure it out. So I really don't think anytime soon it's not going to be Bitcoin because it's too volatile. So I don't think
volatility will go once the value goes higher. I'm going to have to chip in and say that what the earlier gentleman was saying about evolution being the most powerful force, compound interest. Yeah, this idea, and I think the POS heads are going to like what I'm going to say. A lot of the really nice innovation has come out of the Ethereum space, Casper Labs. I follow, wonderful stuff. I love all the smart contracting and all of this. And what's wonderful to see in this permissionless environment, we've never been allowed to do this, yeah? You've always had to ask the bank's permission, and basically they've slapped you down. Now that we've suddenly got free reign, we've got a value transfer network, everybody's building on top of everybody else. The things that are being produced are just so much more interesting and so much more powerful than anything we possibly could have imagined 10 years ago. I mean, this is a decade that's happened, and we've frankly blown everything out of the water. I mean, even simple little projects like Uniswap, you know, on Ethereum, these tiny little things where you add liquidity to an exchange to do stuff. It's like, what? And now you wrap stuff up and you've got tokens that pay you interest and you're going to be building on top of that. This is the evolution of ideas. This is an unstoppable, permissionless force that is growing. And frankly, Dan, what you're saying is totally true. There is going to be no country that becomes the reserve country, the reserve currency. It's going to be a cryptocurrency. It's going to be an apolitical piece of code that everybody can use equally. That's where we're headed. That's exactly the point. It's not going to be.
Remember one thing, governments still have the ultimate hammer, which is to determine what is considered to be legal tender. And so to the extent that we have this cryptocurrency that people want to use, the government can make it very easy to say you cannot use it to pay certain types of things. And so
that's what they're doing.
Unless governments release that hammer, that is always going to be a break.
Actually, what governments love to do is they love to create an environment of regulatory uncertainty. And that gives them full license to do whatever they want until they figure out the way they want to go with it, right? And you saw this happen even with the internet, right? The internet was just used for email and information until the government allowed for e-commerce transactions to take place across the internet, right?
No, not at all, not at all. No, what allowed e-commerce transactions to take place was a new protocol. When Tim Berners-Lee wrote HTTP and HTML, now you could build a website, put a credit card on it. No permissions were asked for at all. None, zero. That's
I understand what you're saying.
It's a protocol move. That's what Patty's trying to say.
No. But the dot-com boom and actually online shopping was actually not allowed from a regulatory perspective until much later.
Amazon started in 1994.
Yeah, but it was after that legislation was passed. I mean, the internet was around.
No.
Okay, I mean, you can look it up.
Not at all. No, that's the whole point of decentralization. Anybody can build a website and anybody can put a credit card on it. And that's what happened. And look, here's the deal. The internet's coming for everybody. First it came for the bookstores, then it came for the real estate guys, it came for everything. Guess who's next in line? The banks. What's after that? The governments. It's just coming. You can't stop it. It's like a tsunami. It's not the tide going up and down. It's something different.
I agree with Meta. I'll just say PayPal is a behemoth. They're huge because the traditional fintechs and banks stepped out of the internet, and PayPal would never have become the huge multi-billion-dollar, brand name global if it wasn't because of banks and Visa and MasterCard basically abdicating, I should say, their throne on the internet. They didn't think it was safe. So PayPal stepped in to the void and they kicked ass. And that's effectively kind of what's happening right now with cryptocurrencies is you have a lot of companies because of the lack of regulatory certainty. They're kind of like, I don't really know what's going on here. We don't want to really screw with that. And there's a little bit of a fog of war moment. And there's going to be another PayPal that's going to step into the void and it'll become that next, thing in the future.
That's how evolution happens.
I'm going to have to step in because our hour is up. I am going to invite you all to stay on now for our beginners episode. I know we were just getting into it and we could have talked for hours longer. You all were absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. For those that have just joined the live stream, we're going to take a short break and play an introduction video. Then we're going to start our beginner session. So all of our panelists, I invite you to kind of stay on and shed some light for some beginners and get some more people involved in this digital economy. For everyone that is watching as well, feel free to register again. And just to reiterate, WeWorks are giving away a 2-month free membership. So if you haven't yet registered on Give On Live, be sure to do so. To all of our panelists, guys, thank you so much. It was great to hear some of your perspectives and some of your debates. Thank you so much. Please stay on and give some people some beginner info. But have a sip of water, a glass of wine, depending on where in the world you are. And we'll come back. Christiana will play a little short video for us now. But thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you feel like going to the theater, your local cafe, attending a concert? Not possible. there's a second pandemic, social distancing. Right now, millions are struggling with anxiety, depression, and loneliness. How can you share a virtual hug? Give hope to survive this pandemic. The key? An interactive bridge connecting humans. Enter GiveOn Live, the home of Livestream. Our mission is to gather Livestream in one place, a portal that fosters connection between humans. Thomas, a hip-hop dancer, was laid off from a Brooklyn studio after New York City lockdown. Thomas posts lessons online, earning by streaming on YouTube. His dream, 100,000 subscribers. He's just as good as Usher, but nobody knows. Tara is an exchange student, quarantined in Milano. She's already binged her Netflix shows. Hip-hop dancing is the one thing she loves. Videos aren't the same as dancing with friends. She's given up. Then she finds GiveOn Live. Next day, Thomas in her inbox. Brooklyn moves. Thomas is a GiveOn Live creator now, receiving donations from more and more fans. Tara joins his dance live, practicing and chatting virtually with new friends. She finds more interactive live stream and adds to her calendar. Great, Tara, we'll remind you when to get live. Live streaming is already the new norm, and we've given it a new home. Zoom jumped 200 million daily users. Imagine what that means for our potential revenue. Stay tuned for premium subscriptions. Behind closed doors, we are still social beings. We need to experience each other. Sharing our culture is what makes us human. GiveOn Live tech superheroes bring positive engagement into every home. Stand apart together, your live stream guide.
Amazing. So now that we have a little bit of an intro, hello everyone, welcome to GiveOn Live's beginner episode, and giving a little bit of an explainer on DeFi Tuesdays, a little bit of an information and breaking down into the world of digital economy, digital finance, and everything in between. So we have some very cool panelists today. We're going to start our little session. Anthony, thank you for joining today. Where in the world are you joining us from? Oh, he's muted still. There we go. And we've got Christiana as well.
Hi there.
Hello, everyone can hear me? Fantastic. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining today. And we're going to give a little bit of a breakdown for some of our amazing beginner viewers that are looking to get a little bit more information on the wide and wonderful world of digital economies. So first of all, we're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to all of our panelists. So what I'd like to do is just go around to each and every one of you. And we did it earlier in the advanced show and it worked really well, is just to get a little bit of an understanding of where in the world were you when you first heard about digital currencies or cryptocurrencies? Where were you, first of all? We'll keep it personal. So maybe Edward, thanks for joining. Maybe we'll start with you.
Hi, good afternoon. It's good to be here. So where I was when I was first heard about digital currencies was at Goldman Sachs, and I received a phone call from a company I never heard of before called Coinbase. And I literally was saying, who is this? Who is this? Who's Coinbase? And then I started looking more into it. That was about 2015.
Awesome. And Daniel, we've already asked you in our earlier show, but these are a new set of viewers. So we're going to start again, new set of panelists. And I won't give away your answer already. Where were you when you first heard about digital and cryptocurrencies? Oh, still muted.
Okay, sorry there, I see I'm muted. So I was in Dallas, Texas, and Bitcoin was trading at like $35. It was like 2010 or whatever it was. I really had no concept of the technology at all. All I heard was that there was some new digital currency that was being traded. That was really my lack of knowledge at that time.
Awesome. And Christiana, what about you?
Hey, yeah, thank you so much. So it's similar to Daniel. I heard about it in 2014 in Korea. So I was helping projects with their startups, and there were certain groups saying peer-to-peer finance, And it was interesting, but they were more talking about fundraising. And then I kept hearing about it, but I was thinking about it more as a stock, right? Okay, so it's just like any other stock, and I'm like 20 something. I don't need to do that right now, right? And then my friend, I moved to Puerto Rico, and then I met a friend who explained it to me, and she was saying, you know, Bitcoin, it's like in Africa when they use cell phone minutes to exchange and to barter, and I'm like, you're talking about a stock thing, like it's volatile, like I'm not a trader, you know, like move away, you know? And then she's like, no, it's gonna bank the unbanked, it's a revolution. And then I'm just like, whoa, you know? And so basically that was my start. And then I literally dropped my bags, and I've been in it ever since. That was like 2016.
Wow. And Anatoly, how about you?
I have a long story about involving into crypto, because I've started to deal with it since the Bitcoin was $6, and even we were friends, and both worked together, and were in the same group of university with Valery Vavilov, the head of Bitfury. So my journey with the Bitcoins started many years ago. I was purely amazed by the mathematical concept, because I myself not programmer and mathematician. So, and it inspired me as a technology, not as economical, not something economical, but purely it's designed how to transfer digital things, and I am into crypto since then.
And then it all began. Now, a lot of our viewers might be watching this and might have heard some words that maybe they haven't heard before. Maybe they are still looking to get into just understanding a little bit more about this industry or this space. And they might already have heard, just from your introductions, some phrases they're not used to. So how this beginner show is going to work is we're going to first of all play a short game for 20 minutes, which is called Explain It to Mama. And this is a really cool concept that I love, where maybe some of the phrases that you guys have just said, but also some phrases that people might hear and we might be used to in this industry, but for someone that's new and looking to learn a little bit more, it might throw them off or might even confuse them a little bit and stop them from being able to learn a little bit more. So what we're going to do is really break down some of these phrases just to help people engage and be able to understand and educate themselves more. And then there is a 10-minute Q&A. So if anyone is watching and is looking to learn more, and maybe they have a question that they can't seem to get the answer to, drop it in the comment box and then we can get around to it. But first off, we're going to start with the Explain It to Mama game. Now, Christiane, I know that you've played it before, and I think the rest of you guys are new. And it's just in complete layman's terms. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some phrases, and then I'm going to give you some people that you might run into in your everyday life, whether it's your landlord, your local barman, your mum, maybe your younger brother or sister, and you're going to have to explain to them some of these phrases that we hear. So today's actual show is based around owning digital money. So maybe we can start first of all with, if you type in digital money on the internet, maybe the first thing that would come up would be Bitcoin. So Christiane, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to get you to explain to your mama, what is Bitcoin? What is it? What does it do?
Woo! Okay, to my mama. So I've actually done this, you guys, and I actually took my mom to a blockchain cruise. Okay, that's a story for another day. Okay, but so mom. So hola mami, hola mamita. I'm gonna speak to you in English for now. I know you're basically bilingual. So mom, you know how when you came to New York and your parents were in Paraguay, in South America, your parents were in Paraguay and you were here by yourself. You were 20 years old, right? And you know how they sent you money, and sometimes they would send it through someone who was traveling to the United States. But that's difficult. You know, that takes a lot of time. Well, now, mom, we can send money to people across borders in other places. We don't have to use other people. We don't have to use airplanes. We don't have to use even things like Western Union, because you know the fees on Western Union. Mom, so, now there's this thing called Bitcoin, and you can do it digitally. So you can send money back home to Paraguay. You can send money to me. You can always send money to me all the time. Okay, Mom? But you can do it easily with this digital money. And it's easy. It's peer-to-peer. It's one person to the next, and very low fees.
Awesome. Well done. So Edward, I remember you saying there in your introduction that you used to work in Goldman Sachs. So I'm going to play on that a little bit, and I'm going to get you to maybe explain to one of your colleagues in Goldman Sachs that hasn't heard about cryptocurrency before. Okay. What is a cryptocurrency wallet? They've heard about it, but they can't understand how it works.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm happy to get into more about what folks on Wall Street think about digital currency and kind of the countervailing forces there. But I think thinking about digital wallets from the perspective of somebody in finance, it's really no different than a custody arrangement as far as we would think about it on Wall Street, which is you have a number of different assets. These assets may be tokens, they may be coins that represent different economic interests, and you hold them in one place, and that is your wallet, and then you're able to make transactions going in and out of that wallet, similar to a custody agreement with a client, similar to an account that a firm may hold on behalf of a client, but the client can then direct that firm to wire funds in and out of that account.
Amazing. And now, Anthony, I want to go to you now, and I want to ask you just to explain. You already look terrified.
Okay.
Because I want you to explain to someone how is a cryptocurrency, how is it created? How does it just exist? How does it just come out of nowhere? Where does it come from?
Mm-hmm. If we will speak about Bitcoin, for example, the answer where from Bitcoins is appearing. It was invention of the creator of the Bitcoin, and he solved one very interesting problem: how to distribute coins for those people who are investing their time, their equipment into security of the system. He proposed let we print this money digitally and distribute only for those persons who really contribute. And we say that he said, I will not print all money for myself, but money will be printed gradually on basis of the cryptography, of the mathematics, and will be honestly distributed only for those people who are really doing something useful for the network. And we call them miners. So miners, they are not simply crunching numbers that are meaningless. They are really solving equations that deliver security to our system.
And I've got a confession for you guys. So when I first heard about cryptocurrencies, I was working in Switzerland in a Forex bank. And I, hand on my heart, genuinely thought cryptocurrency mining would have been with a little pick. I could not break down in my head cryptocurrency. And I've said it on the internet, it's out there. I've kept it secret for 5 years. But Daniel, you're from Texas. So yeah, I actually know some miners in Texas. So I'm gonna ask you, as your Texas grandma neighbor, I'm going to say the guys next to me, their electricity bill is just it's through the roof. Yeah. And they said they're into cryptocurrency mining. What is that?
Well, no, that's great. So the Federal Reserve. Most people don't know that the Federal Reserve, every single transfer that goes from Bank of America to Wells Fargo or any bank through the ACH system, every single ACH processes through the Federal Reserve, every single one of them. That's $51 trillion, $20 billion actual transactions running through a central clearinghouse, not because the Federal Reserve is trying to control people or anything like that. It's because the old model was that you needed a central clearinghouse to ensure there wasn't double spend. That's what they did. So the typical long-term solution has been one trusted entity that you can trust that will make sure there is not a double spend will eliminate fraud. Okay. Bitcoin's true innovation and genius was in eliminating double spend. And so if, let's say, for example, the 6 people on this call, every single one of them has a computer server, and we're all maintaining records at the same time of all of the transactions that are happening at the same time. Now, what's happening is it costs me money to do that. So I'm incentivized by these additional little Bitcoin rewards, right? So if we're all kind of like, yeah, I'm loaning out my computer for the good of all, then what happens is maybe because these mathematical calculations that are all very complicated, maybe I'll get this little Bitcoin. And maybe if I win that Bitcoin, 6 an hour now, then I now have something that is of value today. I can go and trade that Bitcoin for money, right? So mining, all it really is really just lending out or utilizing someone's hardware. So there, whether it be a server or a computer, whatever, it's not a computer now, but it's really, highly sophisticated servers. And then in return for me loaning that out, I'm getting a reward. And that's not too different, by the way. The reason they call it mining, you could think of a farmer, but it's the same thing. If I'm a miner, if I'm a physical miner, I'm having to go out and I'm have to buy equipment. I've got labor and I've got costs. And then I go out there and I'm chipping away and I'm looking for this silver or the gold. And when I find it, it was there. It was a natural resource. And I find this gold. It took me a lot of money and effort to have to find it. But when I found it, I can go and sell my gold for a profit. So really mining, the reason they call it mining is an analogy on the idea around Bitcoin as a digital gold. I know I cut out, I have an unstable connection here, it looks like. Sorry.
No, that was a great start. And I think everyone did a really good job for the first round. It broke everyone in very nicely for the game. Now what we're going to do is I want to get Christiana. She's going to play the person that you're speaking to. So we're going to try and keep it to under 1 minute, but she is allowed to ask a question as the person she's playing. So it makes it a little bit difficult because there might have been some words that whoever she's going to be, she might just not have got. So what we're going to do is I want to start now with Edward. Because today's episode is owning digital money, I want you to imagine that it is your goddaughter or godson's christening, and they're about 6 or 7 years old. And as your christening gift to them, you've decided to give them some percentage of Bitcoin. But you have to explain to them what it is. And to a child, this is going to be pretty difficult. So Christiana is going to, I know, and you've got a time limit.
What's my name?
I'm going to say your name is Lisa Ann. I don't know why. We're just going to go with it.
Lisa Ann.
Uncle Ed. Hey, Uncle Ed.
What's up? What's up, Lisa Ann? How you doing? I miss you.
I miss you too. I want to see you in person.
Oh my goodness. I got a great surprise for you.
What?
I got you some Bitcoin. Can you imagine that?
What's that?
Have you heard of that? It's like money.
Candy.
Well, no, you could trade it for candy. You could trade it for candy. You can trade it for cash. You can keep it and see if the value goes up or down. Isn't that exciting? It's like grown-up money, except it's the new form of grown-up money.
Okay, I want it. Can I have it?
Well, actually, you can, but it doesn't look very, very exciting. You know, we could put it on a little USB stick and give it to you, and then you have to remember a password. How about that?
What's a USB stick? Is that like licorice?
Do not need USB stick. We're gonna get in so much trouble.
Okay. So Ed, Uncle Ed, you're gonna give me this thing. Can I have it now?
You know what? I am going to give it to you, but I'm gonna. Oh man, I'm not a very good uncle, are you? I'm gonna actually give it to your parents so they can hold on to it for you. How about that?
Fine.
But you can watch the price at any time you want to sell it for real money or for candy. You can do that.
Yay! Thanks, Uncle Ed.
Uncle Ed did a very good job, and Lisa Ann has a very sweet tooth, I think, from the questions she was asking. Daniel, maybe you can take over from Uncle Ed and try and just explain it to Lisa Ann a little bit more, because I think she maybe just needs a little bit more clarity. Is there any other points you can give her?
Wait, is Daniel another uncle? How many uncles do I have?
Daniel's another, yeah, he's come along to the christening. He forgot a gift and he had his wallet on him, so he was able just to send it over. It's actually, very convenient for all the fun uncles that were out partying the night before and forgot the gift at home. So Daniel, what have you got to say to Lisa?
How old is she again? What's the age?
I'm seven.
Okay, I have an 8-year-old, so that's good. Okay, so hey, congratulations. So I got you a gift. I got you a gift. So I have something for you that's digital money. You probably have no idea the value that I'm giving you or what it even is, but I'm going to give it to your parents, and it's going to be worth.
I want it now.
And it's going to be worth a lot. But here's the thing: one day it's going to pay for. It'll buy you a car. You might be able to buy a house. You're going to have all the candy in the world you ever wanted when you're old enough. And I'm going to give that to your parents, and it's going to be worth a lot of money for you. It's an investment into your future, and I'm very excited for you. Love you very much. That's effectively what I would tell a kid. That's all I can have the patience, to be honest.
You know what? I think between both of her very cool uncles, I think she's got a general gist. And I think both of the things she's been told there is, Lisa Ann, hold on to it, maybe until you're 18, and it might be worth a little bit more. So, Anthony, I'm going to get you to explain. I think we're going to say that Lisa Ann, because you're doing such a good job at it, but Lisa Ann's maybe a little bit older now. So she's suddenly reached 18, and her mum and dad have said, you know what, here is your USB or your crypto wallet. You can now spend your Bitcoin. So, Anthony, I'm going to get you now to explain to 18-year-old Lisa Ann. She's got her USB stick with her cryptocurrency in. Where can she spend it, and how can she spend it, and what would you advise her to spend it on?
Hi, Anatoly.
Hi.
Gave me Bitcoin when I was 7, and now I have this, but I don't know what to get. I don't even know how to get it out of here.
Hi. No, so firstly, some words to the 7 years old Lisa, and then to 18. So for 7 years old Lisa, I would say that I will give her something that lives in a wonderland. In Wonderland, from the same Wonderland about the Lewis Carroll. So you remember how we read that book about Alice in the Wonderland, and I will open you a secret. Really, this Wonderland between us scientists, I am your uncle, scientist. It's called Numberland. It's a pure world where numbers are living. And this world is amazing. It's truly amazing. It has different treasures in it, but you can explore it via mathematics. If you will be good at school at mathematics, you really will be can observe all the treasures. But I give you this key. I give you this key to this wonderland. This key is really printed on the physical on this paper, but this paper is packed into this box, and I would suggest you to open it after some years. Because it will be worth much more than it is now. So if you will open it now, I would say you can purchase candies, you can purchase something sweet, but I would say that if you will open it when you will be at 18, you will be able to purchase the whole ship or a whole of these candies. So I would advise you to open it only at that moment. And now you are 18 old, Lisa, and yes, you can open it. You can open it. You can spend it on everything, because I think that after 10 years, so it will be really your ticket to the space. I would say that you will be able to purchase something that will be built by Elon Musk or another guys. So to take it to the moon, really, not that to the moon that we are hearing, but real.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Lisa Ann, you must be exhausted right now because you have had a lot of information thrown your way from your amazing counterparts.
I've got
so now what we're going
to
you got so many, you got some from everyone, which is that's what it's all about. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have it open for Q&A now for any of our audience members now. So if anyone wants to drop a comment in the comment box, we can get around to asking those and shoot those around. Before that, I want to do a quick 30-second explainer to everyone, because I think there's still a lot of conceptions when it comes to digital currencies. And one might be, is there just one digital currency? So there might be little bits of questions. So these are going to be more questions than buzzwords. So Daniel, I want to start with you. Is there just one digital currency?
No, there's not. There's many. And I think that that's okay, in the same way that there's many different country-based currencies. They're foreign exchange currencies. There are now different and effectively different digital currencies, but many digital currencies are really effectively just digital commodities. So that's how I view it. Some of them are viewed as an investment. I would also say be very, very, very careful. Be very careful, be very smart. Don't listen to somebody necessarily because you heard them on YouTube. Really do your research and trust no one. But I understand it. And yeah, I hope I answered that right.
That was great. Edward, I want to go and ask you now. Now, another question that you might hear in the cryptocurrency space from someone that's not really familiar with it is, what is the biggest concern when it comes to security? Is my money, if I make it digital into crypto, is it less safe?
Is it less safe? Well, I think it's differently safe. I think that it's right now in the way money is typically stored and processed. I mean, Daniel mentioned, the ACH system of the Fed. There's a centralized place, and that entity, whether it's a bank like JP Morgan Chase or a central bank like the Fed, they keep the records of who has what, whether it's records of transactions or records of balances. In most digital currencies, but not all, they are decentralized. And what that means is there isn't an entity that's responsible for keeping a record. There's a system set up amongst global participants where those records are kept secure. So it's a bit of a mind trick to get around the fact of, well, wait a minute, it's secure, but it's decentralized. And then you have to get into, well, how are some of the mechanics and what are some of the secret codes that allow that to happen. But I think it's also important to mention that, just as Daniel just did, not only are there many different digital currencies, there are also digital versions of traditional currencies that may exist now and in the future. And I think it's also worth talking about some of the differences between central bank issued digital currencies, which some may argue are not quote unquote real crypto, the stable value tokens, as well as more traditional accepted crypto such as Bitcoin. And we can have a talk show just about those and the differences and have a lively debate, I'm sure, with this audience.
Amazing. Now we're going to play one last buzz round with 5 words, in which those 5 words you have to explain digital money. And it's always hard when you have a time constraint. And I think a number constraint of 5 is going to be, it's going to be quite a struggle, but I know that you guys can do it. So maybe Daniel, we'll start with you. Digital money in 5 words.
Digital cash.
Digital.
I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. Digital cash.
Yeah, 5 words or under. Anatoly, how about you? How would you explain digital money in under 5 words or under?
I would say that it is a true money independent of state.
Okay, I like that one. And Edward, what about you?
Someone else keeps the record.
Ooh, nice.
That was a really good one to end it on. I think that was really interesting. Amazing. Guys, I really hope that, and I'm sure that we've provided some of our viewers with some informational content there, because I think we've really managed to break down, you've all managed to explain really, really well some of these buzzwords and some of these phrases. So for anyone that is watching and viewing at the moment and is looking to get into the space a little bit more, we have got one of our partners, which is Edge Wallet, and the link to download their wallet is in the description box. And they'll be giving some special charity percentage to go to the COVID-19 efforts. So there is some kind of the beneficial there that you're giving away, and also a good breakdown for you to get involved into as well. But guys, thank you so much for joining on the panel. Feel free to subscribe, because we're going to do these DeFi every single Tuesday. And Christiana, it's not just Tuesday, is it? We've also got some stuff on Fridays, on Saturdays. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what else we've got?
Yes, you guys. So just wanted to say that basically DIGECON is entering the digital economy. So that's not only with digital money, but that's also with creation. What about art? What about music, entertainment, right? And then it's also with the gig economy. So now a lot of us are at home. How can we earn money, right? So DIGECON, the mission is to usher people into the digital economy. What does that look like? What is the future of work, creation, and connection? Like what we're doing right now. We're at home, but we're connected here in this virtual house, right? So there's stay tuned for DIGECON en Español. Stay tuned for F Up Fridays, where entrepreneurs are gonna share some stories and teach you guys, like, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur online? We've got plenty of pioneers in that. So that's the mission here. So excited to have everyone here. And yeah, thanks, Jessica.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much. That was a really awesome panel discussion. You guys gave some interesting points. Even I learned something. Thank you all so much. Edward, Daniel, Anthony, Christiana, thank you guys so much. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Hold
you.
on, guys. You don't have to leave yet.
Maybe the question, do we have any minutes left?
Yes, Anatoly. So now that would be the end. That would be the official end of the beginner show, because this is going to be cut up and it's going to be released later. But now we're just all going to be here. And then, so yeah, now it's just kind of free time. And Anatoly is super cool. He wants to share something. So Anatoly.
Some art devoted for this particular session. I do not know whether I can show my screen. Sorry, looks like that host is still disabled.
I want to see who's here, who's in here. Hey guys. So Anatoly's just sharing now. This is not going to be released in the episode. This is just some family time. Anatoly, I'm going to make you the host, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to make you the host. Hold on.
Where's everyone located? I'm curious. Where is home right now?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm in Malta at the moment.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
What about you?
I'm in Connecticut, about 90 minutes from the city.
Ah, fun.
Yeah.
Alfred is a technology hub, fintech hub out of Atlanta.
Wow.
Nice.
How hot is it in Atlanta now? I always imagine it to be like boiling.
Beautiful. It's perfect. It's awesome.
Fun. And Anatoly, you're in Latvia, right? I used to live there.
Yes, I am here. So finally, I can share my drawings, and yeah, I think so.
Wow.
These are cool.
It was a special. No, I'm risking to overwhelm with mathematical concepts, but I will try to be concise here. So because really, when Christiana asked me what means to own the digital money, it really looks for me like a philosophical question. really what does it mean to own or to share something that is digital. And I prepared some illustrations. One of the illustration that Edward already tried to explain where what is money, where what is digital, what types of money
Cool.
we have. So we have a digital money, we have decentralized money, and we have fiat money, and all these things are combined. And there are, for example, digital money. They can be either crypto or traditional money. But for example, crypto doesn't mean decentralized, because we already seen when states are trying to create cryptocurrency, but central bank digital currency, central bank issued, and so on. But this is a classification. It's boring. It's boring. More interesting things.
Musical.
Whoa.
Yes.
That's gold, right?
Yeah, so this was gold. I wanted to say that main invention of the Satoshi Nakamoto that created Bitcoin. He propagated rules of the physical world into world of numbers, because physical world doesn't behave like a world of numbers. For example, if in our physical world we divide and want to share something, we need either to give away this thing or split it and give only part. But for example, if we are in the digital world, and we copy something, we really give the same things. And this is why that was already mentioned, we can double spend. If we would, in pure information, in pure digital world, we will be able to copy money. And Satoshi Nakamoto solved this problem, how to send information without copying it. So you can send it without leaving information, digital entity on your side. So this is based on pure mathematics, and I really tried to show something, but I think that maybe it is better to devote additional stream. What means hash and what means keys.
Yeah. Well, Anatoly, we're not explaining anymore because we can't give it all to them. We got to give it pieces at a time, like Apple does.
Okay, you know? Okay.
Piece at a time, little piece at a time.
No, but this is really cool. I mean, it's one of the hardest things to do in our space, right? Is to explain clearly to people outside of our space what this is all about, right? So, you know, I come from the more traditional banker mentality, so I do so versus PowerPoint instead of art. But I really like this. In fact, I was taking pictures of some of the screens as well, which I'll never use without attribution. But I think it's a very, very interesting way of displaying that to an audience that may be eager and intelligent, but still not aware, right? You can't just start using mumbo jumbo terms, because people will say that was a really smart person that walked in the room, but I have no idea what he or she said.
Yeah, can you go back to that key, the pretty key, the pink key? I think it's to the right.
So this one.
Other way. There were like
this one.
Yeah, what's this about?
This is about how signatures are working. If you will take so for example here real key, so golden key is a private key, and the shadow of the key is public key. And for example, if you have a shadow of the object, it means hash of the object, and you will use your private key, you will obtain a signature. But if you have a shadow of the object and signature, you can calculate a public key who really was the signer. And this is a fundamental cryptography that is under the all Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a lot of so these equations really describes how this cryptography works without any mathematics.
It's
But
really
but
useful,
you
actually.
simply so here only two types of shadows. One is shadow of the key, and one is shadow of the object. And here is my explanation. So shadow of the object is the hash.
Wow.
And shadow of the key is the public key that can be derived from private key.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Very
I think
cool.
it would be cool to maybe have like Bitcoin and illustration day, you know, and maybe we could invite some like artists to come and like ask questions and stuff, like specifically reach it to the artists, because it's like, this is cool. Like it's nice to see something visually, you know, especially like with the Merkle table and all those things. Cardano actually, and unfortunately Nathan had to pop out from Cardano the first round for some emergency, but Cardano actually has made this very, very cool VR experience. So it's a VR experience. I tried it last year. That's their summit. You put this headset on, and you are inside the transactions of the Bitcoin.
I even know almost personally the person who draws Cardano visualizations. It's Scott Darby, and we together worked on one component very, very long time ago, before the crypto era. Now he's a designer. He's a visualizer at Cardano.
Amazing. Okay, so wow. I mean, guys, yeah, this is just so cool, and I'm really glad you guys are here. Anatoly, can you get it back to the people scene? Can we take the screen off so we can see everyone?
Okay. So yep. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
There we go.
Oh, Patty's back. And then one more thing I want to talk about is like, can we talk about round one? Can we talk about
guys? I'm sorry I had to cut you all off because you were doing so good. There was too many people. It was awesome, but it was.
I enjoy, a healthy debate.
Yeah. No, that's the.
Where are you based?
UK. I'm currently in the middle of the country because obviously we're based in London, but currently we're all out in our houses in the middle of the sticks. So.
And Scott, you're in the UK as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in London.
Ah, okay. I'm from Cardiff originally.
Nice. Where are you based now? In Milan.
In Malta.
Even better.
Even better. The sun is shining. A bit better weather than Cardiff, just a little.
Yeah, that debate on the first round was epic. It was so good, so engaging. Great fun.
Someone actually said, was that you, Daniel? I like throwing elbows. I was like, ah!
I'm known for it. Yeah,
oh my God.
I'm known for taking very, the opposite position frequently. So
nice. Yeah, I think it's great because I think honestly, like, my goal, like, for all this is like Thanksgiving, right? Uncle Jerry gets drunk, your cousin Pete, like him, but it's family, right? And so we're all working on different projects. Like everyone in that panel is working on cool stuff. And I really do think everyone's heart is in impact. And if they weren't, then I probably wouldn't be friends with them and they wouldn't end up on the show. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, even like Rubini, I'm inviting him to the show. Noriel Rubini, he's not evil. I spent He's not. I spent a weekend with him in Bretton Woods. We went to like this epic like Bretton Woods 75th year anniversary. It was put on by Bancor. It was amazing. It's like it was all these different voices. That's kind of what inspired me for the show. It was like everyone had different.
Can you explain why someone who's clearly as smart as him, clearly understands money, economics, all of these issues, totally fails to get this entire movement? This is what I don't understand. How can they be so capable of understanding what's happening here?
I mean, it's what it is. I mean, I don't know, Daniel. What do you have?
Warren Buffett is one of my all-time heroes. I mean, the guy, he's a Benjamin Graham guy. He believes in value investing, and if your worldview is value investing, then you probably don't understand Bitcoin. It's and even Warren Buffett missed out on the internet for a long time, and now they have a huge position in Amazon, but they waited for a long time to get an Amazon, and that's because they have a certain worldview. And I will say with Noriel Rubini, who I would love to debate. He's much smarter than me on many things, but there's a sort of, if you're always betting on it to go negative, well, eventually that's going to happen, right? Eventually, through a cyclical nature, there will be a negative. And I think that will prove to be wrong. His positions on Bitcoin are going to be, they're going to seem so juvenile and outdated.
Yeah.
I know that I sound like a very, I'm, obviously a big Bitcoin man, but I specifically big up proof of work, which is the thing that I'm actually a fan of. I think the truth is that the current proof of work system that Bitcoin uses is centralizing far too fast. Yeah? Like, I'm not sure this is the way that proof of work is going to be able to work in the future. I mean, I'm currently working on a different version of proof of work where you don't have miners per se, you have users, they mine their transactions, blah, blah, blah. For me, the whole entire point is the decentralization. When I started using Bitcoin, I was running a full node. I had the -G, which when you ran on the command line, it meant you actually mined. And I was mining and I was doing it. I just feel that all of that has gone. And somehow we've all been, we've been co-opted and, it's been run over now. And the truth is, number go up is such a powerful meme that it blows everyone's brains out. And everyone's like so obsessed with the price and all of these things. It was far more fun when Bitcoin was £1 and we were just mucking about with it and just sending them around. Now it's sort of stressful and lots of money.
Mucking about. I love it.
No one's spending their coins because they just want to keep them, because, the truth is that, the prize is so enormous. The game that we're playing has got such the pot at the end of this rainbow is so fathomless that we're still, an itty bitty little player. I think it's going to get interesting when, I sort of see the tipping point when one of these currencies becomes more valuable than Apple. Yeah, because currently you can't actually price Apple in a cryptocurrency. It's too much. There's not enough Bitcoins to come to $1 trillion. Yeah, we've only got a 250 bill market cap. So frankly, it's nothing. It's, it's peanuts. Because the truth is that not only do these things have to be worth more than the most valuable thing on Earth, which is, Apple or Shell or one of these companies, it actually has to be more valuable than the sum of everything else on the planet. Yeah, we're so tiny that none of this matters. Yeah, and when it does matter, as you were saying with the... Sorry.
I'm just saying, Patty, like that day, I'm probably not going to be alive. You know what I mean? So I mean,
that day is less than a decade away. That day is 5 years away. Don't get, it ain't happening in 10 years. It's happening in the next 5 years.
What happened in 5 years? That's what
I don't know, like some, I don't know.
Patty,
global domination.
No.
Patty, what is happening in 5 years? I want to be clear.
What, sorry?
What's happening in 5 years?
In 5 years, I'm saying the US dollar will not be the dominant currency on the planet. In 5 years, a cryptocurrency will be 5 years. In the next 5 years, one cryptocurrency will be more valuable than the most valuable company on the planet.
So I actually disagree, if you don't mind.
I agree.
Maybe this should be the show, right? This should be the show.
Right? Go.
So I talk about this in the talks that I give to bankers, investors, and lawyers, and all the corporate folks who are sued, right? But I think that Bitcoin will be outlawed. That doesn't mean it'll be destroyed, but I think that it's a huge threat to the global financial system.
Totally agree.
All right. So I think that while in the last bill of relief, the coronavirus relief bill, you had provisions in there for digital currency that were eventually stripped out. They're specifically talking about US dollar digitization, right? So here's your US dollar serial number. Now you have it in a crypto wallet. Use that because we can always print more of those, unlimited amount, as opposed to using Bitcoin, Ethereum, or pick your favorite other cryptocurrency, right? I think that while cryptocurrency and Bitcoin will always exist because it's literally impossible to shut it down, I liken it to the drug trade, right? Cocaine, marijuana. I mean, I don't know anyone in New York City where I live that can't get some, but it doesn't mean that I can then take a block of it and say, here, I would like to buy that apartment, right? So I think that where digital currencies are going is it'll either stay low, which is not good for any of us, or it'll get high enough to become a threat and will be outlawed, in which case I think that's the ceiling. It's a legal ceiling.
I don't agree with either one of you. I agree with
Wow.
I agree with Edward. I'm not a disagreeable person. I'm just like, so I agree with Edward his disagreement with Patty relative to the 5-year projection that the U.S. dollar is going to somehow become, not the global currency. I don't see anything taking that over. Remember, Bitcoin, which we all love, it's only worth like how much on the marketplace? I mean, it's like, it's like
250 billion. Yeah.
It's not even close. Okay. It's not even close. So no one's worried about gold taking over the US dollar. And when Bitcoin gets to a point where it's gold level, then let's talk. But we're so far removed from that.
And then I have to step in and say, I think it's not really going to be up to the US government. Yeah, the 4% of the population of the world, which is the US, versus the 96%. The 96%, I think, are the ones who are getting a little bit fed up with the unfair advantage that the US government has with its, we do the reserve currency, so we have practically unlimited printing pressability.
You know what? That's bullshit.
You know what I would say, though, is I would say in 5 years, based on the situation that we're seeing now with this coronavirus, and we are seeing economies move differently, and the US economy is a great example of the Fed printing more money and this economic shift, we are going to see younger generations that have distrust in our older traditional financial system. We might not be there yet in 5 years, but in 5 years, we've got 5 years of younger people being able to be a little bit more socially aware of what is their asset and where they put it. So I think we're slowly in this transition process. 5 years is very soon, but in 5 years, we're definitely going to be a little bit more closer because we are just getting in this generational level.
It is growing in the same way that the internet is growing. Okay, so agreed. It is. It's on a. Okay.
But I would say that I would like to do two things. Firstly, is purchase a box of popcorn and to see what will happen. And another thing I would like to contribute for the pure mathematical methods, for the anonymity, for confidentiality, and all this, because 5 years is a really big term. Because now every month a new breakthrough in cryptography related to the zero knowledge proofs, confidentiality, and so on. So 5 years, my mind will blow when
I'm just saying in 5 years it'll be more valuable than the most valuable company. I'm not saying that everyone will be.
But I want to see what will happen. What will happen because
so Patty, that's a different situation, right? So I don't necessarily disagree with you that Bitcoin's value will increase, but I think we're talking about two different things here. One is, will it become the global reserve currency, which I think you said it would be, and the other one is, will it increase in value? I think that Rubini could be wrong if he's saying it won't increase in value. But look, if the value of Bitcoin goes up by tenfold, let's just use a number, right? It's 100,000, a coin. It would have failed at being the world's reserve currency. Why? Because then it goes from 250 billion to 2.5 trillion, which is a lot, and everyone in this conversation is very happy if that happens, including me. But it still would have failed to be the world's reserve currency. You're talking about $86 trillion of money. And my question to you, Patty, is if you've got all these countries that are fed up, all these people that are fed up with the US dollar being the reserve currency, who specifically, or what types of currencies, or what kinds of people, what kind of governments will actually take the step to move away from USD reserve currency? And will they move to
China, India, Australasia, all of these countries? I mean, currently, Russia deals with Iran on a daily basis. But it was from SWIFT. Yeah, I think that was an enormous mistake by the US government to do that, to say, look, you can't use SWIFT. This was meant to be this sort of external thing. It was meant to be, you want people to be able to use your money. Yeah? You don't want to stop people from using your money to transfer. They brought this on themselves, the US government, by stopping countries from using it. So you now can't buy Iranian oil because you're not allowed to send them banking restrictions, etc. These aren't small economies, yeah? When you add them all up, I mean, India, Russia, China.
So India, here's why I disagree. I think with Iran, yes, I understand that you're incentivizing places like Iran and Russia, which is not a friend of, let's say,
South America, Venezuela, all of them.
Yeah, Venezuela's tiny. Iran, while important, is not a huge percentage of the global economy. And I agree, those places were pushing outside the financial system, right? But when you look at Europe, when you look at Even India, right, which is not of small size, right? India does a lot of business with the U.S., right? And this is why I'm saying governmental pressure is so key here, because even if the Indian people want to get away from the U.S. dollar, they want a stable asset, right? And Bitcoin, for all the good things it has not been a source of stability, right? The price obviously fluctuate. And B, even if it does achieve stable metrics and people agree that that's a currency that we should use, we have a lot of influence with the government of India by saying, hey, you sell us a lot of things, right? We import a lot from India. If you'd like to continue doing that, you can't be allowing your people to use Bitcoin, and you can't support it with social metrics. You need to pass laws to discourage it, which is why I think this existing system is too entrenched for something like Bitcoin to be the global reserve currency. It doesn't mean it won't exist. It doesn't mean cocaine exists, marijuana exists, and they're doing quite well and have been for decades, right? But I think with Bitcoin being the world's reserve currency, I'm a hard no. For it rising in value, absolutely. Yeah, it'll rise in value. Sure, I agree with you there.
Nice to see you.
Hi.
Oh, is this it? Okay, we're getting kicked off.
Hi.
Be continued. We should have a debate just about this. Come on, Christiana. Come on, Jessica. Let's do this.
I would say I would say that the Bitcoin itself is a very interesting thing that happened with the humanity. And since it appeared, nothing can vanish it. It's a kind of one of stable points or a tractor that naturally opposes these financial systems. Yes, it could fail in it. But at least it bites it. It bites it, and it tries to shape and to find the it kind of notions from the egalitarianism when you should have not such much power.
Right.
So,
I mean, if I can just chip in and say that one word that hasn't been mentioned is the petrodollar. Yeah, the reason the dollar is so powerful is because it is used as the base currency for everybody trading in all the oil that they're buying and selling. And frankly, in the next 50 years, is that going to become as big a deal as it has been for the last 50 years? Clearly, the whole planet has been running on the petrodollar for the last 50, 60 years. There's not going, now with renewables, with all this new energy, et cetera, that sort of thing is going to finish. And I think it's going to really affect the dominance. People take for granted why you need the US dollar, for the big deals, for the shells, for the really big multi-trillion dollar investments, you need the US dollar. That's fine. Once that stops, this idea that, we're still going to be using the US dollar, we're still going to be letting them do whatever the hell they want. They're printing more money than Zimbabwe. Yeah, this is a Mickey Mouse country. This is ridiculous. Yeah, if they were anybody else, their currency would already be toilet paper.
Did you guys hear that joke? I agree with you. I agree with part of what you said, Patty. Did you guys hear that joke about you're hiking in the woods with a friend and you guys see a bear and the bear is really aggressive and you both start to run away from the bear? So the question is, how fast do you have to run? And the answer isn't faster than a bear, it's faster than your friend. Okay. So I think the same analogy holds true for the currency argument. So I agree with all the parts you said, Patty, about, the dollar has all these problems with it, but it's still the best we've got, right? And Bitcoin is being eaten by the bear, quite frankly, compared to this, right? You can't have something go like this in fluctuation, right? It's
a 400-day moving average. This idea of an SOV is a store of value just means that the money doesn't go down. On a 400-day moving average, the price of Bitcoin has never gone down. So frankly, as long as you hold it for 400 days, you have never lost money on Bitcoin.
400 days?
The volatility is purely a function of demand with a fixed supply. So frankly, if you're looking at it long term.
Should I keep my salary for 400 days and wait for it to rise? That's not practical. I 100% believe it. I don't even believe in savings anymore. I just buy more crypto. But that's different from saying that it can be the whole system's on the dollar right now. Even if China wanted to back out, they can.
This sort of exceptionalism just isn't going to cut it, especially with the younger generation.
I'm happy. I don't want it
It's hard enough to deal with this. Not enough for us to deal with it. we've grown up on Wall Street, yeah. Charlie Sheen, Gecko, love it, yeah. Nobody can ever imagine the US not being in charge. But frankly, as a Brit, we were in charge before you lads. And the truth is, everything finishes, everything comes to an end. And the US is unfortunately in the descendancy, not the ascendancy. You know, the new generation are not going to be up for the rubbish that the US are pumping out now. Yeah, no way.
Patty, I'm on
Guys, I've got to bounce, but thank you all so much. It was amazing to talk to you all. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say that I need to go as well. So it was interesting. So thank you very much.
Do you want the US dollar or do you want something new? Are you saying that because you don't think it's going to happen or would you like something?
What?
I'm 100% for Bitcoin. Let's be clear here.
So
you know what I mean? But Anatoly, let's just say bye, Anatoly.
Bye bye. How many people does it take to be 100% Bitcoin for it to start working?
I'm just saying that I'm not going to shove, just like I can't shove Jesus or religion down people's throat. I can't shove Bitcoin down anyone's throat. That's it. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying it's gonna be gradual and it's gonna take time, you know?
Yeah, I think like Patty, as you said, I think until it reaches like a market cap that's actually, it's going to get people's attention. And I think we see that every time we see a new time high, the media starts talking about it. The taxi drivers, the Uber drivers start talking about what is this thing? And I think that's a gradual progression. But as we said, like Warren Buffett, as an example, he completely he's been negative and essentially doesn't see value in Bitcoin. But as we've seen, like Jamie Dimon was exactly the same. And now like you have JP Morgan supporting 2 exchanges, Gemini and Coinbase. So, I mean, you're seeing these small use cases in this like gradual progression.
Slowly, then gradually.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, like if Bitcoin is the next reserve currency, then I'm all for it.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be Bitcoin. I'm just saying that there is going to be a shift, that the new generation are not going to be up for the way the monetary politics have been running for the last 40, 50 years, that we're going towards a much fairer system. Luckily, I don't actually think there's anything we can do about it. Yeah.
Right.
Luckily, this permission, this environment means that this is going to happen whether we want it to or not. I mean, if you were a betting man looking at what's happened in the last 10 years, I think mathematically it would be pretty hard to bet against that happening. You know, it's going to take, as you say, they might ban it, you know, they might have to attack it. You know, we're going to see if it can withstand a proper state level attack. But if nothing changes, I think it'd be a pretty, pretty off bet to say that these things aren't going to take over the world. You know, the internet, the only other really decentralized system that we currently all use, has frankly been an enormous success. Yeah, everybody uses it. We use everything on it. We do everything on it. We all communicate over it. So, you know, this decentralized, you know, the open source, you know, the internet isn't run on closed source. Yeah, the internet is run on Linux. The internet, 99% of the back-end servers on the internet are running Linux Apache server with MySQL. So there's something fundamental about this open, transparent, permissionless systems that we as humans love. This is simply an extension of that. You know, I sort of see it as progression.
But Patty, do you remember AOL? We used to get all those CDs in the mail, right? I had like a stack of AOL CDs. So the question is you're, by the way, we just dated ourselves. If you remember that, it means you were alive at a certain time. Okay. So, I used to get those on floppy disks, so don't even ask.
48K, man. That's where I started coding. So it's like,
yeah. But ultimately, like, is Bitcoin AOL, where AOL is still around? I still see people with AOL accounts, but I don't know too many people having like the keywords on AOL anymore.
Is it? Yeah, I agree. Is it MySpace? Is it Facebook? I'm not actually, you know, I actually happen to think it might be a MySpace, you know, there might be something new. The Facebook is coming out, etc., etc. But cryptocurrency as a whole is going to take over. Yeah, there's just no way.
Yeah, but how would you feel?
The main reason, I think, is actually just that the competition isn't fair. Economically, you know, we don't want people to be able to prop up bad businesses. You know, as consumers, as people of the planet, what's awful to see There's all these really, really bad businesses not allowed to fail. I mean, every time you mention Warren Buffett, I'm like, no offense, but Warren Buffett has basically lived through a 25-year bull run where not one single year has the stock market not gone down because the Fed has printed so much money that if there's ever even the chance that it might go down, they prop it up. I mean, at the moment, what they're doing is ridiculous. So,
but the Fed is not just.
Part of me is like, yeah, Warren, great guy. Obviously,
no, the Fed isn't just propping up the stock market. The Fed is also creating a certain artificial stability for economic growth. So if we had during the subprime crisis, like
economic growth, mate, is totally and utterly undermining everything. Yeah.
Yeah, but you agree that we're in a better world of growth. You agree with the better conditions than we were in the 70s, right?
Woo! Okay.
They're removing our ability to notice risk, utterly and totally destroying any chance that the cream rises to the top. They're utterly destroying any chance that the businesses should be thriving, which is what we want, survive, and the businesses that are rubbish should be dying, should be going out of business. You know, this notion that no business should be allowed to go out of business, and if you do that, it's good for the economy, is nonsense. Continue.
Yeah, but that's like saying instead of having the Constitution and Magna Carta and all the laws we have, it should just be law of the jungle, eye for an eye, because that's what cryptocurrency and the free reign really is.
It's called capital. We don't have capitalism at the moment.
Correct.
It's socialism, sort of richness.
I agree. We do not have true capitalism, but I don't think we're ready for that as a society to have people all of a sudden, robber barons here and then ultra poor here, because that's what a true free market looks like. And we do not have a true free market. I would argue we're never going to be ready for it as a society.
The most productive time when we conquered the earth was in the Industrial Revolution, where we basically had capitalism. We were allowed to do what we liked and we got on with it. Now, clearly, I don't want to be slave trading, selling all of this. I agree. Morally, ethically, we come on.
Free market.
Free market. No, but free market with strong regulation. I'm sort of a Mises man.
Okay, so the Fed. Okay, hold on, man. You can't have it both ways. You either have a free market and everyone's got whatever Bitcoin we got, and you can go die if you don't have enough Bitcoin, or it's now regulation, and now it's no longer like you got to prop some guys up that don't deserve to be propped up. It probably worked for some of them.
There are some things you're allowed to do and some things you're not allowed to do. I'm not saying it should be lawless. I'm just saying.
You say we should have a king then, so we can decide what we are not allowed to do. I mean, come on.
The competition should
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games.
That's what drives good. Yeah? That's what gives a good economy. Proper risk assessment, proper interest, the price of money, the interest needs to be fair, needs to be, you need to be able to work that out without worrying about, I'm having to second guess what the Fed are going to do. It's like, what? Yeah, this should all be decided by the economy. I should be able to see it and say, well, clearly that's a risky business and clearly this isn't. Currently, they're all exactly the same. You just put them into the stock market and it goes up. It's like, that can't be right. Yeah, that's clearly nonsense.
Right.
If the 2008 financial crisis had happened without the federal intervention that we had, we would have recovered from it for a lot longer, right? The fact that there was that bailout that I know everybody hates, all of my libertarian friends hate that bailout, right? I get it. That actually made sure we didn't go as low, we didn't stay as low there as we did, right? So
I think we didn't take our medicine, mate. We just didn't take our medicine. We just swept it under the carpet, and now it's back 10 times worse than it was. If we'd taken our medicine in 2008, we wouldn't be staring down the barrel of a shotgun, which is what we're doing at the moment. And it's even worse now. I mean, it's just, we're totally out of control now. There's just no sense at all to the value of money. It has lost all meaning. This is why, cryptocurrency is so nice.
And McAfee's probably holding that barrel. McAfee's holding the barrel. I'm not taking a vaccine, though.
McAfee's a boy. McAfee's a boy. He's a freedom fighter, yeah? I'm up for McAfee. He's all right.
McAfee, he was on my friend's show, and he goes, he asked, hey, if you have some money to, McAfee, if we have some money to invest, what should we invest? And he's like, get cans of tuna and get guns. Guns.
We're not allowed guns in the UK. We're not really allowed guns in the UK.
We got plenty here in Connecticut, but it's hard to get ammo. Don't forget ammo. Remember, if you get guns,
right.
When the pandemic started, the local gun store had no ammo. It was so. What? Remember, yeah, true story. Yeah, you couldn't if you want ammo.
Who's going to win 2020? Guys, who's going to win 2020? Who's 2024? Is Biden? You're bumbling, senile. Or is it which one of the two? The senility or the virility? Which one are you going for?
I'm not good for anyone. I'm not. I'm just.
It's
handle this.
It's a trigger moment. You're thinking, I don't even want to think about it. It's so horrific.
No, I don't. Because I left New York 10 years ago, and I went to Asia, and then I was hearing these news. I'm like, is that a dream? Like Schwarzenegger, the Terminator's a mayor, and then Trump is. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I was just like, is this fake news? Like, is this lies from China? Like, what's happening? And then,
remember, Jesse Ventura was governor. He was a former wrestler, right? Wasn't he governor of Minnesota?
He has a great story. He's disciplined.
I mean, frankly, I kind of feel there's going to be this movement towards slightly more, charismatic, non-politicians becoming, the president of the United States. I was thinking Clooney. They're gonna hire people who are just a face, who can just, charisma is going to become more important than smart.
Samuel L. Jackson for president.
Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson, President Jackson. Yes. Got some great memes on Facebook. The campaign's already started. So.
Wow. I'm gonna jump. Great to speak to you all. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so
much. Guys, I think I'm going to jump too. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for chatting. Good luck to everybody. I hope we all win, frankly.
Thanks,
you guys. I'll be following up.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.
See ya.